the Monday, April 1st meeting of the Fitchburg School Committee. I call this meeting to order. There is no executive session for this meeting. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask anyone in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify yourself for the record now by stating your name and city of residence. Seeing none, I ask all electronic devices be placed into silent mode. Okay. And we will do a salute to the flag. Dr. Knight, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, ma'am. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on our agenda we have school committee members and student reports. We have a school committee chair report. There is no report at this time. We have the resource subcommittee report.
Resource, we just have one grant to accept and one to submit. We also had an enrollment meeting with Nick Packard, our enrollment director, and you got all of the information on enrollment. The committee, I'm having the building needs and enrollment included in your packet every month when it's given, give you more information. One of the things Mr. Packard talked about was we were up 16 students, and most of them are from immigrant families. Well, that's what's happening with enrollment. Any questions?
Okay, no questions. We have school. Oh.
Yeah, I just can't help asking the question. When you say immigrant families, you mean came here legally or illegally?
We don't ask.
We don't ask.
No. Am I correct? We don't ask.
They have every right to be here.
Pardon?
They're here as migrant students or immigrant students. So we don't ask their status when we enroll them. Yep.
I don't know what to say about that, but I asked the question.
Yeah, no, but that's the immigrants, that they come and enroll. They just enroll. We don't get any other information on them. No. Jim?
And just to clarify what, how immigrant students are defined, this is by the state. It says immigrant students as defined by the state include all students who are born outside of the U.S. and its territories for the first 3 academic years in any U.S. school. So they could very well be a student who was going to school in Leominster for 2 years and they come here, and they'd be considered an immigrant if they were born outside of the United States.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions on resource subcommittee? Okay, moving on. School building needs.
School building needs. Again, with the school building updates by Daniel Outserson, I'm including in your packet all the action that has taken in the schools for the past month and all of the updates, and I'm going to put that in your packet every month. Some of the things we'll get, we had a Crocker Field update, and that'll be starting, Crocker Field will be starting in May. That will be, we have the security system was reviewed, and the update on the architect engineer selection for capital project and the status. Mr. Oceni.
Yeah, most of those projects are out for public bidding now. So the HVAC, so the heating, ventilation, air conditioning upgrades at Memorial Rheingold South Street are publicly bid. We've had the walkthrough with various contractors. The roof project at South Street, the South Building complex, that's out for public bidding now. There was a walkthrough with potential contractors for that last week. The surveillance system, security system will probably be publicly bid on April 10th, with a walkthrough during April vacation. And then a couple of other projects, walk-in freezer, front door system at Fitchburg High School. Those will be bid out in about a week or two. So all these projects are summer projects. The combined value is about $12 million.
Okay. Mr. Roach also held meetings with the police and fire department on the security systems.
Yep.
So, and that went well. Any questions? Okay.
Yes, so Crocker Field starting in May, but that won't affect our planned graduation
We don't know
events.
yet.
We don't know yet.
But we have a meeting this Wednesday with the contractors, the first owners meeting this coming Wednesday with Quirk Construction, members of the Crocker Field Restoration Committee, our project manager, Gail Associates, and we're going to talk about the project timeline.
Okay, great, because I attended a previous Crocker Field Restoration Committee meeting a couple months ago, and I brought that question up, and I believe the understanding was that the construction that would affect the field would start after the graduation was planned.
Yeah, they're trying to get in to start as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because they're worried about something, the weather they cannot control and what's going to happen.
And we want to get the season in the fall, so they may need some more time. So we got to talk to them about exactly what that timeline looks like this coming week.
Yep,
So
great, good. If we need to adjust,
we may
now's
need
the
to,
time.
we may need to pivot, but
If we need to pivot, yeah, we'll plan for it.
One thing about that project is it takes 1 month for the track to cure. So there's a time that needs to happen for that undercoat of concrete that's, going to be a significant period of time. And I think the concern is always, what if we have a summer like last summer, where it seemed to rain 3 days?
We won't, it's going to be beautiful.
No, I'm hopeful too.
Every weekend.
So yeah, April 3rd, we're going to really get into the project timeline.
One of the things I'm hoping for is that this fall that we could have a couple of alumni games, maybe girls soccer and girls
On the new track?
lacrosse on the new track.
Sure.
And kids who have not had the opportunity to play at Crocker Field because of the condition of the field. So if we could have a few alumni games, get some of them back on to play at Crocker Field. So I'll be talking to the athletic director on that.
And I just have a further comment on the school building maintenance report you provided. In regards to the potholes on Arnhow Farm Road, which, it's pothole season, it is bad right now. And, it notes that the DPW will be fixing the potholes as soon as possible. And in addition, I had a meeting with the DPW commissioner talking about in FY, next year, the state plans to resurface Ashby State Road. So we're working with the state to hopefully extend that onto Arnhow Farm Road with some sort of, offset from the city of Fitchburg. And the problem with Arnhow Farm Road right now is there's a retaining wall that is holding up that road that is failing. And so we are, as a DPW, trying to prioritize the repair of that road this year so that we are ready for MassDOT to come and assist us in paving Arnhow Farm up to, where it was newly paved a few years ago. So that's where we currently are with that.
Okay.
thank you.
May I ask a question? Tell me if I'm out of order. Regarding potholes, I have heard, and is it true, that if someone acquires an expense to repair a tire or some damage to the car due to a pothole, that the city will pay for it?
There is a claim form available. If you go to the City of Fitchburg website, fitchburgma.gov, and go to the mayor's page, there is a new claim form. You fill out the claim form, and then it gets submitted to the city's insurance company. And the insurance company does an investigation and determines whether or not to pay that claim.
So somebody should probably take a photo or picture.
All the documentation is suggested. And,
Because on occasion, I thought that tire's going to blow, It's pretty bad out there.
so we encourage residents to report potholes on See-Click Fix, because if it is not reported and the city doesn't have due notification to, repair that pothole in reasonable time, then it will
get paid. Thank you.
Okay.
If I may, I have one question.
Yes.
The parking area for Memorial, does that fall under the city, under the school system for potholes?
The parking lot for Memorial Middle School would be under the jurisdiction of the school department.
Yeah.
Is
Is there
there,
a pothole
Oh, there's a lot behind it.
Yeah, there's,
behind you?
I can,
It's like off-roading.
Go ahead, Mr. Rhodes.
so I know that the public bid for paving contractor that the city is doing actually includes quite a bit of square footage for our specific school parking lots. I worked collaboratively with Nick Erickson, the commissioner of the DPW, because that allows us to potentially get a much lower price in repairing a number of our parking lots. It's not just Memorial. We have a few that need some attention, from Fitchburg High School, Rheingold, South Street, the Long Joe Hastings lot. So we've given all of those dimensions that are actually, I think that might be out to bid now too. I'm not sure, but
It's top priority,
in
but
the
it's not
process,
out
yeah.
yet.
and paving season begins April 15th-ish and later. So we're gonna once that's done, sit down with DPW and see what we can. It's costly because that is a cost for our budget, but we're going to work with them to see what we can manage to get done.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Moving on to Policy Subcommittee.
There's nothing to report at this time.
Okay, very good. The Student Support Subcommittee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our April meeting would be in another 2 weeks, and then we would have a report at the other meeting. Thank you.
Okay, and that date is
Hold on.
April 24th?
I think it's the 24th.
April 24th at 5
Yeah, April 24th, the Student Support Committee is from 5 to 6, and then the Policy Subcommittee is from 6 to 8 on the 24th.
6 to 8 on the 24th. Okay, thank you. Okay, School Personnel Subcommittee, we have no report at this time. We have Student Representatives Report.
Hi, it's just me today.
Student Representative.
At Fitchburg High, the spring sports season is currently in full swing. There's baseball, softball, girls lacrosse, girls tennis, girls flag football, boys and girls outdoor track and field, and boys volleyball. For any questions about the season, please see or email Mr. Robbins. The MVP program, the application for next school year is on the Fitchburg High homepage. The program is a great opportunity for students who will be in 11th or 12th grade next school year and are interested in studying carpentry or electrical at Monty Tech. And make sure to mark your calendars to come see Fitchburg High's SpongeBob the Musical next week. The show dates are Thursday, April 11th at 7 p.m., Friday, April 12th at 7 p.m., Saturday, April 13th at 2 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. At Longzhou, yearbooks are on sale, so anyone interested in buying the Longzhou yearbook should see Miss Orsini or Mrs. LeBlanc. At South Street, kindergarten enrollment for the 24th-25th school year begins today. The after-school program is the first session of the after-school program will conclude on April 4th, and session 2 will begin on April 8th. It seems like the students are really enjoying it. At Rheingold, the math and literacy night has been postponed due to the incoming weather and will be rescheduled at a later date.
I don't know.
What's incoming weather?
None.
Thank you so much, James. Okay. Any questions on Student Representative Report?
But I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I could hear you clearly, and it's very presentable to the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further comments, questions? Yes?
I also want to comment on both of you, including not just things going on at the high school, but things that are going on in all of our schools. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, very good. Let's continue on in our agenda. We have the approval of the minutes from the previous school
Make a
committee.
motion to approve the minutes of the...
Second?
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of March 18th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Fantastic. Okay, moving on, communications. We have none at this time. Public comment. Public comments of no more than 5 minutes in length were offered to be submitted to the superintendent via email by noon Monday, April 1st. Do we have public comment?
None that were submitted.
Okay, so we have do we still have a public comment waiting in the waiting room for Zoom? Dan?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll start with the public comment on Zoom, if you'd like to unmute, and you will have 5 minutes to make a public comment. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon. I don't know if everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Well, hello. My name is Eliza Rivera. I'm actually Fitchburg High and Fitchburg State alum. I'm currently attending a graduate program at Fitchburg State, so definitely very involved. My whole life has been obviously molded by Fitchburg and, the school committees and Mr. Roach and a lot of different people who I've had the honor of crossing paths with in my life. So they've definitely been a huge inspiration to that. So the public comment that I wanted to bring today was just bringing awareness of something that I was interested that I didn't realize existed and actually is not currently, I guess, active, and is the youth committee for the city of Fitchburg, which I believe was, I don't think it's been active since 2015 based off the website. When I had checked it, I got in contact with the secretary, I believe, for the mayor, Miles. We had a conversation, we had a phone call and exchanged some emails, and he had mentioned that it was just not active due to, I guess, this lack of engagement or lack of people showing up to meet the minimum requirements for the forum. And so I just wanted to get more, I guess, feedback on that and see if there was any other reasons why it wasn't active. It's something I'm personally myself very interested in, and just being able to try to create a movement in the youth in the city of Fitchburg outside of the school system. And obviously we can have a huge impact, and the system had a huge impact on my life, but just being able to carry that same momentum and those same initiatives and opportunities for the youth outside. Having been someone who was raised in a single mother household she had 2 kids, and coming from low income, just being able to have that sense of direction or guidance or even support system outside of the schools was super helpful for me. I was raised at the time where the Claygon Neighborhood Center was still present, and that had a huge impact on my life and shaping me and just keeping me on track and giving me some type of structure to be able to kind of pursue my dreams and kind of pursue the life I want to live. But having seen a lot of people my age, my friends, even from school, and kind of the, I guess, at times lack of support they had outside of school, and just having that community engagement for positive initiatives and positive messages and just lessons that they're able to learn outside of school, I've seen the results in their lives. So it's something I'm definitely passionate about. Ever since I heard it existed, but it wasn't active. And just wanted to kind of bring it awareness. Is something I've talked with a few people from Fitchburg Creative about. I know they have a lot of different initiatives there, and also with New View Communities, and definitely a lot of inspiring people over there, and just kind of them wanting to help the city and just make a change and have an impact on their people. And so just wanted to, I talked to Mr. Roach, and he had mentioned it'd be a good space to bring it up in case anyone was, curious, or anyone had any ideas, or anyone, had any feedback or advice on the youth committee in general, just trying to get that back active. So I guess the last thing I wanted to leave was a little quote from Franklin D. Roosevelt that says, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." So thank you for your guys' time, and hoping to maybe bring this back another time at another meeting with some more positive feedback.
Thank you so much for your comment. Okay, now invite anyone in the audience wishes to speak. Please approach the podium, identify yourself by name and city of residence, and you are free to make a public comment of no more than 5 minutes in length.
You have to watch the seats, I guess. They roll.
Yes.
My name is Bill Walsh. I live in Fitchburg, Prospect Street, a lifelong resident. I was a former vice chair of the school committee and was on the board at Goodrich Academy. And I'd like to make a couple of comments about the situation with the principal at Goodrich. I know you're all under a gag order, so you can't say anything. I'm not under a gag order. And I'd just like to make it a couple things that I think need to be clarified. Number one, there is a principal's contract for all the principals in the Fitchburg school system. And Mrs. Curry does have a contract, and it was signed by the superintendent. And it does have a section that talks about due process, and it was guaranteed in her contract. And one of the reasons that I'm bringing that up, I don't think she was given the due process. And if you ever looked at the contract, it's I think it's 6 pages long, but on page 5, there's a section that deals with termination and discipline. And what I want to bring up to the board is the fact that the superintendent is a key member of the discipline and termination of the principal, and I don't believe that happened. And I'm sure that there's a reason that the superintendent didn't follow the contract. So I guess the contract is somewhat worthless in that what did take place was a letter with a gag order, and I don't believe that is giving due process to the principal. And I would say that the superintendent didn't follow the contract, and I would think that it would be professional for him to have met and discussed the situation that arose. It falls under sections A, B, and C of the termination and discipline contract, and I think the necessity of a gag order wasn't necessary if he had followed the contract professionally and met with the principal. I also find that the method of notifying Ms. Curry was very unprofessional, and that the superintendent and the assistant superintendent confronted Ms. Curry in front of her faculty without notice and removed her from the school. And that was over 2 months ago. So I guess the parents and the students are wondering, I know there's a gag order, however, this can't continue forever. Students are dropping out of school and not coming back next year. Faculty are resigning and taking jobs at different places. So the school is in dire need of some closure. And I would hope the board would consider that. Another issue that came up that is kind of interesting, that 3 of the 4 top administrators in the district are now from Lynn. And I think there's a reason for that, which we'll go into a little later, I think. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm not asking for any decisions or any comment. I just think that it was handled unprofessionally by the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. And there are 1,400 parents who agree with us and have a petition to maybe permanently remedy that situation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I would just like to clarify that the school committee does not have the authority to address any matter related to personnel that we do not appoint. Thank you.
You can talk from there. Talk from there.
Yeah, you can sit right at the table.
Thank you very much.
Yes. The wheels are convenient in that way.
Good evening. My name is Mike Pellin. I live in the city of Fitchburg. I was employed by the Fitchburg Public Schools for 36 years. My last job was principal at Goodrich Academy. Can you hear me, Ms. Reynolds?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to make sure I get that done. It was January 10th that I had received a call from Mrs. Curry about a building walkthrough that was checking for the location of WIDA standards. Mrs. Curry shared with the assistant superintendent that the position of the WIDA standards in a classroom was not that important. This is an alternative high school, people. This is a school that saves kids. This is a school that has over 1,000 alumni every year getting kids to the finish line. Kids that have young children at home, students who have decided to accelerate their lives, go to Goodrich Academy for that last chance to get a high school diploma and give them the same chances that you and I have had in our lives. And we're going to worry about WIDA standards in a classroom? So because of that, the assistant superintendent and the superintendent decided, let's wait a few days instead of talking to Mrs. Curry at central office like any good administrator would do to curb this problem. We wouldn't be here having this conversation if that had been done. And somehow we couldn't get that done. So we're going to wait because we know Mrs. Curry meets with her teachers at noontime on Friday, and we're going to get her. We're going to take her things and walk her out of the building and make her look like a fool in front of her staff. I wonder how you would like that, Mr. Thompson. Would you like that if I walked into your school when you were having a meeting with your staff and moved you out of there? It just doesn't make sense to me that we're taking away from our kids that we need to help the most and their families that we need to help the most. As Mr. Walsh said, this has been going on since January 10th. It's ridiculous. So what do I see in Fitchburg now? The coming of the private investigator. He's going to come in and he's going to ask questions, and we are paying him, hold on, at a rate of $300 an hour. That's right, $300 and $120 to travel to Fitchburg from where he is out in Western Mass. What are we doing? We're going to waste thousands of dollars on a private investigator who's going to come up with nothing because he has nothing. And you've taken a principal who's given her life to work with at-risk students, and you've thrown her out of the building unceremoniously. When are we going to take time to realize that we're wasting? He's got a couple more weeks of investigations to do. He's got to write a report. You know what that report is, people? It's a purchase order, so he can get more money. Who is giving you the right to waste that money in a school situation that makes no sense? We don't even know if this guy is quarried. We don't even know if he should be in a school with people. No less subject your teachers to that. Some of them have been interviewed 3 and 4 times, the same stuff over and over. And the bill just keeps rolling up and up and up. I don't get it. I can't find an answer except, how did we grow onto a private investigator? And I found out, guess what our human resource person was fired for in the city of Everett? You guessed it, hiring a private investigator. And her superintendent put her out of there quickly. You are fired, not to return. So where does she come? Fitchburg. Great job.
Mr. Pellinet, you have 10 seconds left on public comment.
I can't get a timeout? Well, I'll tell you what, Mayor, I'm going to save the end of it for you. You have more power than what you know on this school committee. You chair this school committee. It's time for some changes to save this thing. I had to listen one night while our ex-mayor said, well, we're not going to find anybody, so we'll just go with this superintendent. Look what you got. Look what you got. Dr. Knight, I hear you every meeting say, we need to put a minority person in there. And you are right. The enrollment is close to 70% minorities. We're going to cheat our families by saying, well, you know, we can't do it. Let's just get this guy because nobody else is available.
Mr. Pellin, thank you for your comment. Your time has expired.
Well, the Eagles won yesterday in overtime, so maybe I can too. Have a great night.
Thank you. Are there any further public comment at this time?
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Schmidt. I am a lifelong resident of Fitchburg. I have spent 26 years teaching in Fitchburg Public Schools. I am currently the Executive Director Treasurer for the Fitchburg Education Association. I had zero intention of speaking tonight at public comment, so please forgive me while I collect my thoughts. But I can't help but comment on some of tonight's comments. No one is denying that Ms. Curry has done good things for our students. However, there is more to being a leader and far more to being a building principal than just dealing with students. There are staff to deal with, there are colleagues to deal with, there are central office administration and leaders to deal with. There are actual job responsibilities with the city, with the state, and with DESE, and that's just a quick list that I could write down while I was sitting over there. And as with anything, there is a process, and in this case, an investigation. And unfortunately, it's taking a little bit longer, but in the essence of due process, like was brought up, I think it's important that we actually allow an investigation to be completed. The union actually demanded that an outside investigator be hired to ensure that an unbiased and fair investigation happened to protect our members. I would caution anyone to blindly believe anything that they are told, because they are likely only hearing one very biased side of this story. And in the interest of transparency and justice, I would hope that people would actually wait till the investigation is over. Granted, I'm with you, it's a little annoyed, we need to move on here. But actually wait till the actual facts are brought out in this situation. And on a side note, some things can be Googled and the truth can actually be told. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mayor Squalia. All right, so may I have permission to take a item out of order?
Which item would you like to take out of
It's
order?
actually a action item. It's action item 24374. The second, to approve the Black Student Union's trip to Howard University in Washington, D.C.
I'll make that motion that we take 374.
Second.
Motion and second to take the action item 24374 out of order. You are free to
Thank you.
share about that.
So I apologize.
Point of order, we need to take a vote on the motion.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Jim. Okay. Vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
So in front of you this evening, there is a field trip permission slip form to have the Black Student Union attend Howard University during April vacation. This was something that the Black Student Union came to us back in the fall, and we never brought this to your attention. So this evening in front of you, there is a ask to approve this. It is 2 weeks before the trip. But the Black Student Union will be going to Howard University and also visiting the Capitol Building and museums in Washington, D.C. If you have any questions, we have some members here from the Black Student Union to answer any questions you may have. But I ask that you do approve this evening so they can actually move forward to go on the field trip during April vacation.
Yes.
I have some questions. Who's here? You said somebody.
Theo, come on up.
Good evening, school committee.
Introduce yourself, Theo.
My name is Theo Demosthenes. The students know me as Mr. D at the high school. I'm a Gear Up counselor, so I work at Mount Wachusett Community College, but I'm also the advisor for the Black Student Union Club.
So may I ask I see your name here, Mr.
Yep.
Demosthenes. Reading this approval form, I have some questions. An overnight trip, grade, what's the grade?
12th grade, all seniors.
All seniors?
I apologize. The handwriting may not be.
Yes, there's a problem.
That's my handwriting.
So 11 students?
The numbers dropped down to 10. One of the students have had to drop out.
Down to 10?
Yes.
And you have 7 adults accompanying the 10 students?
The numbers dropped down to 5, but yes.
5. And so you're asked, and what is the estimated cost? I don't see that on this page.
Let me pull that up for you. The estimated cost is, sorry, give me the cost sheet. Between $8,000 to $10,000.
And I personally have not seen a request like this before that we pay for $8,000 to $11,000 or $10,000.
Well, the breakdown is also including food, which the students and the chaperones will be responsible for. And I believe the subcommittee said they'll be able to pay for the hotel and for transportation.
Well, I understand that it costs that amount of money, but why would we do this for all students that make this request?
Well, it's a culturally immersive experience for students, especially students of color. They're going to Washington, D.C. to see Howard University, which is an HBCU, a historically black college or university, as well as get a tour of the Capitol Building, as well as see museums and stuff. So the reason, I guess, to make my answer short, to why you would want to fund this is because these are our students who don't get an opportunity to see themselves often in positions of power and authority, and a chance to learn about the history in ways that you really can't do so in the classroom. Not to mention these students, particularly the class of 2024, are students who didn't get a Washington, D.C. trip because of the pandemic.
This is specifically to go to a college that I presume that they're showing an interest in
Attending? Yes, a couple of them have.
and let me see if I have it right. Are you involved with the Fitchburg school system?
I work for Mount Wachusett Community College, but I am indirect because Gear Up is a program that works in partnership with Fitchburg Public Schools. So yes.
And are any white? I don't even like to use the word black and white. I just never heard of this. Us paying for people to attend a college. So it doesn't.
Well, it's not just. It's not just the expense is also. It's a 5-day trip. It's not just a 1-day trip.
Yeah.
We're not just going to Howard and coming back. So the.
I don't even like to say are any white, Asian, anything in the world, any people of any.
Well, the field trip was offered to members of the Black Student Union Club, and just for the seniors. As it stands, all of our seniors are people of color.
So potentially, if this were to go through, every year some club could form in the beginning of the year and make a request of us to fund their attending a college of their choice. Or
Well, it's not just attending, it's a tour and an information session as well of the history, learning about the history of Howard University, the importance of HBCUs in that time and especially in today's time.
Have any of the students that are proposing to make this trip applied to Howard University?
One of them has, yes.
1 out of the 11?
Yes.
I just see this as setting a precedent that's unable to be continued.
So, Rosemary, just for a clarification, back in the fall, and Mr. Stevens can speak to this, the Black Student Union came and presented to the Resource Subcommittee, and the Resource Subcommittee gave them approval to move forward with planning the trip, and that we would pay for transportation and lodging for the club.
But that would have to be open to all students in our system that expressed an interest in Howard University or any university.
If I may speak also.
In the future, excuse me. Also in the future would mean that any club that sought to do this, this would set the precedent of saying, okay.
I can appreciate your concern, and I do think it's important for us to be fiscally responsible, so I do appreciate you sharing. I do also think it's important for our community members to know that we do actually have funding that is very specifically targeted for, English learners, Hispanic Latino students, students with low income. So there are actually funds that are very specifically targeted for giving accessibility to our students of color so that they can make sure that they have access to representation that represents the lives of our students. And I think this is one of those examples of an opportunity for that to happen.
I believe when we had, sorry to interrupt you, Rosemary. Ms. Reynolds. Mrs. Reynolds. If I may, I believe that when we brought this up in the fall, I believe both Superintendent Thompson and Assistant Superintendent Roach said that there was grants funding specifically for a program or something just like this. And we've used grant funding for other particular cultural enrichment type programs and events hosted in the city of Fitchburg. And I know you brought up you said this might be a precedent that might be tough to find fiscally irresponsible to run, but if we have, again, the opportunity for our students to enrich themselves educationally and stuff like that, it's not just something that's fiscally responsible or irresponsible. This is an investment in our students. I did say one student applied, but I was actually wrong. It's actually 3 students who have applied to Howard, and not just Howard. One of them has actually gotten into Clark A&T, which is in South Carolina, which is another HBCU. She's also going on this trip. So this is important to them. It's also important, I think, for other students, not just students who are black or African-American students, but any student of any diversity, any minority group who can see and feel that they are getting the enrichment that they're getting, not just enrichment, but support and backing from the school district to show that you are seen and that you are heard.
How would you define black? I mean, who's black? How do you define black?
I don't believe I have the time to go into that, and I don't think that's 100% relevant.
And excuse me, I think Dr. Knight had her hand up.
Yes, I appreciate most of what I heard. I just wanted to remind you that I'm part of the Student Support Subcommittee, and I want to support everything that is done for all students. But I do recall last year, I can't remember the name of the grant, there was a $30,000 grant that was in the newspaper specifically for African American students, and I never did hear what these funds was used for. So I certainly 100% appreciate what, I didn't hear your name, I step outside somewhere on the paper, but I do appreciate what you're doing, and I do agree that these students deserve the opportunity, and I don't want to get into a whole bunch of history and different things, but these students do deserve to go on this trip to Howard University in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Mr. Roche?
I defer to
Mr. Stevens?
Last fall, we approved this from our resource committee, and I still support this, these students taking this trip. We support many different groups. We're helping the Washington group. We help the kids that go up to New Hampshire on these overnight trips. We provide a lot of funds for different students, and I think this is a great opportunity to send some of our students on a trip to something like historic university, like Howard University. And how often have we sat here and our administrators talking about growing our own students to come back and be teachers and ambassadors for us? What a great opportunity to send kids to Howard University, and maybe some of them go there and go down and say, you know what, let's go back to Fitchburg. It's a great place to live, raise our family, a place to teach. Dr. Knight, you're always talking about we need to hire particularly black teachers. Howard University, I'm sure, has a few in their School of Education down there, and we need to make inroads. How else are we going to grow? And we need to help as many students as we can to take these trips. As a principal, I did everything possible to get my kids to take trips. So many of our kids in Fitchburg don't even get the chance to go to Boston. They never even get a chance to go to some of the farms to see animals. They don't leave Fitchburg. If we don't provide, taking the time to provide the opportunity for these children to expand their horizons, and see what's out there, and then say, look back, because I think Fitchburg's a pretty good city. I've lived here for over 82 years, and that's where I'm going to end up, I hope, So I think we need to give these kids the opportunity to expand and spread Fitchburg and grow our own teachers, and that's my feeling.
Thank you. Mr. Roche?
I would just add to what Mr. Stevens said. Over the past several years and maybe prior, a number of groups have come to the resource subcommittee to promote a particular field trip experience, whether it was the AMC Club's field trip to the White Mountains or the 8th grade trips to, because we remember those were on pause for a while, so coming back last year, the 8th grade trips to Washington, D.C. Longjo has had a number of field trips supported by district funds, ESSER funds in some cases, to help students visit places like Amherst College and another number of other places. A lot of times food is included in those. We are phasing out of ESSER funds, but when Mr. Demosthenes came to the resource subcommittee on October 3rd, he described a similar type of cultural, academic. Howard University is one of the most selective colleges in the United States. It is an unbelievably rigorous, challenging, amazing school. So not only that, but experiencing the nation's capital. So it's very similar to other trips that we have supported in the past. And the Black Student Union, and I give him a lot of credit, but the students as well, is open to anyone. Just like the 8th grade trip is open to anyone. That is true. Not all 8th graders go. Just like the AMC Club trip is open to anyone. Not all students participate. The field trips that we've supported for Longjo's initiative that they had, we want to get our kids to Amherst College, one of the greatest, private colleges in the United States. So these types of things, I think, we support because of the experience that it can provide and the unique initiative that was brought forward to us. Not everybody does that, to your point, Ms. Reynolds. They did, and again, on October 3rd, the resource team did decide to approve that. So I certainly support the initiative, and though I recognize your concerns about opening the potential doors for everything, again, I do think there's a particular perspective of a unique opportunity. This one has never been brought forward to my knowledge. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Ms. England?
I was just curious, of the 5 chaperones that are currently going, are those teachers or staff?
So one of them is myself, 3 are Fitchburg Public School staff. I can give you their names if you like. No, and 1 is a parent chaperone. The 2 that are dropped were parent chaperones because of conflicting schedules, but we still have a parent going.
Ms. Reynolds?
That was one of my questions I was going to ask. Thank you. And because we're usually told who's going and if a nurse is required and et cetera, et cetera. But I believe, Mr. Roach, that I heard you say it's open to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I have no problem if it is.
Yep. Yeah, any of the clubs are not exclusive to an individual demographic group or gender or anything like that. They are open clubs, and they're designed for, promoting a lot of positivity in the school in a variety of different ways. And I know the Black Student Union has done that since its inception a few years back.
Black Student Union is not just all black students.
Right.
I know my granddaughter, who's white, has been part of it, and some of her friends, that's, so they know, Bridget.
And it's a national organization. There are Black Student Union chapters at many high schools, and I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of order, many high schools around the country.
Ms. Jeffries?
Question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to comment and say that when you get back, I would love to hear about the experience.
We could definitely
Really.
Plan on
do a
having them
presentation.
Love
back
that.
to talk about the experience.
Mr. Walsh?
I don't have much to say since Mr. Stevens and Mr. Roach pretty much covered what I feel the same way. I think it's a great learning experience for the students and for the chaperones to learn about. And as you say here, it's not just going to Howard University for 5 days. They'll also be visiting the other appropriate museums and legislative buildings, et cetera, to learn about everything. But I think it's a great opportunity for our students, and I'm in support of supporting this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Dr. Knight?
Yes, this is a question I don't know, so you got to tell me, those of you that know more about this. I'm pretty sure nobody ever done this. I'm usually, outside of the box. As a school committee member, can I pay for my own trip to accompany this team to Howard University? It's the week of April vacation, right?
Yeah.
Can I do so? Will I be violating anything?
Nope.
Okay. Can I get your contact information, sir? I do have family in the area, so I don't need hotel or anything like that, but I will get there.
I don't see why not. If they don't see why not.
How are you getting there? Are you taking a bus or you're
Taking
flying?
a bus, yes.
Oh, okay. Could I go on this, buy my ticket and go with you all on the bus or whatever?
Sure.
We can talk. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Knight.
We'll talk.
Yeah.
All right, can I ask for a vote, Mayor?
I'll make a motion that we allow the Black Student Union to attend the Washington, D.C.
We have a motion and second for approval of 24-374. Any questions or comments on the motion? Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you so much.
Very much.
Congratulations.
Have a great trip.
Have a great trip. We look forward to hearing back from you. Awesome. All right. So tonight we are continuing with our department presentations, and this evening we have our Special Education Department and Pupil Service Personnel Department here for their presentation. So please welcome Alicia Barosby, our Director of Special Education, and Roanne DeMatch, our Director of Pupil Services. Would you like to introduce Camilla? I can present for you if you like.
That'd be great.
this is Camilla Arsenault. She is our CPAC president. The CPAC is the Special Education Parents Advisory Council. So she is here tonight, and she'll present a little bit about CPAC as well.
Great, thank you.
So I figured I would highlight a little bit about our department, starting with, so currently we've seen an increase in special education, students identified with special education in Fitchburg to 25% currently. The state has also seen a rise in special education, going from 18% to 20%. We are above the state percentage for special education, for students identified with special education. Part of that is, there's a variety of different reasons that play into that, some of which is we have a high population of students who are living in poverty. We do have a lot of great programming, so there are some students who have moved into the district in search of additional supports. And we have quite a high number of students who are English language learners or dual language learners as well, which can impact reading, writing, that sort of thing.
Ms. Borosky, can I interrupt for 1 second? School committee members, in front of you, the packet of this presentation you have. So if you cannot see the screen, please follow along in front. I made sure everyone had copies, okay? All right, you can continue.
All right. You can go to that. So over the last 2 years, because of the Student Opportunity Act, we have been able to add an additional 21 special education positions, including teachers, evaluation team leaders, program and non-program paraprofessionals in fiscal year 23. And then in fiscal year 24, we were able to add additional teachers, board-certified behavior analysts, and registered behavior technicians to support some of the behavioral challenges that students may exhibit in school. So special education is not just about equality, but it's about equity. So special education really lies in the green area. The hope is the supports that we provide our students, we're allowing them to have more access to the curriculum and really show the strengths that they have. Next slide. So what makes special education special? Go ahead, Jen. So it really starts with all of the parents and the staff members who work together collaboratively to support our students. So starting with Camilla Arsenault, who is our CPAC chair. Again, CPAC is a Special Education Parents Advisory Council. Our department leaders, myself and Roanne DeManch, and all of our evaluation team leaders and building administrators. We also have directors with Brendan Keenan, Director of SEL, Pam Rivers, Director of Nursing, Laura Douglas, Director of Early Childhood and Preschool. We have a variety of supports, individuals, which I'll talk a little bit more about, but including our related service providers, teachers, and paraprofessionals. So I will let Camilla Arsenault talk about this.
Thank you so much. So my name is Camilla. Some of you may know me. I also volunteer on the Disability Commission, so I've been before some of you in the past. I am a parent of a child who is disabled and has special educational needs. And so when the opportunity came up to volunteer for the CPAC, I felt like I really wanted to invest my time into the special education community here at Fitchburg, because I know that we're strong in numbers, and as Alicia said, there are more students being placed into that category, even though I don't think that it is a limitation to say that a student has special needs. So our mission for the CPAC at Fitchburg is really to provide families with community support, tools and resources, and advocacy skills. So the special education journey can be challenging at times, especially when you're getting a new diagnosis or you're finding out that your child may need something that you weren't not aware of. And our goal is to really just bring these families together so that we can just offer support, resources, and community partnerships. So we do have weekly, or not weekly, that would be a lot, but monthly meetings, which we're currently doing via Zoom, but we hope over time to start bringing people back in person just to further build those relationships. And we are partnering with organizations such as PPAL, the Federation for Children with Special Needs, to offer trainings and different things that will encourage families as they help their child student. And so lots of exciting things coming up. We're hoping to just continue to build those community partnerships. And I think a lot of parents don't know that we exist. We want to change that. So if you know families that are in the community that, it's not diagnosis specific, it's not need specific. We want to bring families together, and sometimes you'll have a lot in common with certain families, sometimes you may not, but I think it's a unique and shared experience, and we really want to encourage people to join us. And so you might see some things coming up in the future. I think we might have a pizza social at some point, details to follow. But I think the most important thing is just the visibility. And so we do have a few different ways that you can find us, either by the CPAC email, which does come to me directly. If I don't have the answer, I'm going to point you to the person that does. And I think, and then we have the Fitchburg CPAC group, which is a private group. We have 49 members strong, so that means that there's 49 new families that have connected with us. And I think what's important for me to speak to is that my goal as the CPAC chair is to really drive the relationship between administrators and parents as a collaborative effort. So it's a positive experience, and even if there are complaints or not complaints, I think concerns or things, our goal is to really remedy that in a positive way. So I kind of went on really long, so I think I'm done after that. But thank you.
Just another plug, Camilla is also bilingual and she speaks Spanish, so luckily between the two of us, we've been able to translate for some of our CPAC meetings.
Yes, I would have not remembered to say that. Yes, fluent in Spanish, which between the two of us, surprise some of our members sometimes when we just start speaking in Spanish, so that's fun.
But it's been helpful in terms of accessibility for our parents who may have concerns or questions. Camilla is able to answer those directly. Nice job. Some of our service delivery models. So we have paraprofessional support. We have related service providers, including speech, occupational therapy, behavior analysts, physical therapy, vision, hearing, and medical. We also have co-taught classrooms, which I'll talk about a little bit more shortly, and direct academic support. We also have self-contained program for students with more severe disabilities and who require additional supports within a smaller classroom. And so Learning Perspectives services students with emotional disabilities, Pathways services students with autism, Guided Learning services students with intellectual impairments, and then we have the FSU program, which is housed at Fitchburg State University, and it services students who are 18 to 22 who have intellectual disabilities, and so by law we're required to support students until they're 22 if they have a significant disability. So this allows them to move on with their peers, and it respects the fact that they want to be with kids their age. Some of the curriculum that we currently have in place is listed here. The newest in the district is Teach Town, and that is a program that we are using in Pathways and Guided Learning programs. So it really is specific to students with autism or with intellectual impairments. And we've seen a lot of great cohesion so far. We're still doing additional trainings that we have included, and one-on-one coaching for teachers. So co-teaching is something I wanted to talk a little bit more about today to give people a better understanding. Co-teaching is currently used for students with special needs as well as students who are English language learners. we have combined a general education teacher, so that's really the academic specialist, and the special educator who is a learning specialist. And they work together in a classroom supporting students. In the classroom, there might be students who have both special needs and who are general education students who aren't identified. Or there might be a learning specialist, an ELL teacher, who is a learning specialist of language acquisition. So within those classrooms, it allows students access to that curriculum at right then and there. The further away a student is from the general education classroom, the less likely it is that they will graduate on time. And that's part of the reason our district moved towards co-teaching. We started about 10 years ago, I believe, at Fitchburg High School, as well as Crocker Elementary, and then we started school by school. But what we found was we really needed to work as a district and unify this practice across the district. So this is the second year, I believe, of district-wide application, and with SOA funds, we were able to really increase our staffing to really do this more effectively. So some of the different models that you'll see of co-teaching, one example is parallel teaching, where two teachers will split the class and work on specific skills with their group and then flip-flop potentially. Another might be station teaching, where there is a general education working with students and a special education teacher working with another small group of students. And then the other groups are maybe working independently on specific skills. And the benefit of this really is that there may be, the general education teacher sees a student who's struggling in a specific, let's say, math concept. She's able to really work and decide, I'm going to work with this student even though they're identified as special ed students, because she maybe has a better grasp on that specific skill that the student needs support on. And the special education teacher may work with other students who aren't identified as well. It really, what I've seen over the past couple of years is teachers really seeing the benefit not only to the special education student or the language acquisition student, but to the general ed students as well. So some of the additional things that are happening in Fitchburg, there's a new IEP improvement project that's being rolled out by the state. All districts across Massachusetts by school year 24-25 are required to utilize the new IEP. Our district has begun some of the training, and if you want to click the next slide.
It's a little slow.
Really, the purpose of the improvement project through the Department of Education has been to enhance collaboration and really promote communication between school districts and teachers and IEP team members and parents, provide more clarity and consistency with the forms. They're revised to provide clarity and consistency with the IEP process and implementation, to meet those state and federal requirements, but also I think it's partially to help students understand, help parents and teachers work better together. Comprehensive documentation of the program, and the new IEP form offers more detailed framework of documenting your child's progress, accommodations, and services. So we will be ready to roll that out this year. We've started training. We will also, I believe we received a grant for additional training for the new IEP system. So we're implementing some coaching for our new staff, as well as providing some training for our parents as well. Best Buddies is a program that's up at the high school, and Falcon Friends is a program that's Fitchburg State University. I don't think it's going on this year, but it will be going on next year. Best Buddies is a nonprofit organization that establishes a global volunteer movement that creates opportunities for one-to-one friendships for students with disabilities, specifically intellectual impairments, and without. Fitchburg High currently has about 25 participants in Best Buddies. It's also, Fitchburg High has expanded their course offerings to include physical education, art, music in Best Buddies classes. And they work together for a common goal of really friendship. I think the other thing that has kind of spun from that is the unified sports, which has really, expanded to other districts, and we now, Fitchburg High plays against other districts in a unified sports where it's typically developing students as well as students with developmental delays. And just some of the different activities that the kids that Best Buddies has put together, the apple picking and homecoming dance, bowling, and Valentine's Day party. And lastly, the Macy program, and Roanne has really been working with Fitchburg State on this, so I'll let her speak to that.
So Fitchburg State University wrote a grant called Macy, and it actually supports Fitchburg Public Schools as well as surrounding communities to really identify students at the high school level. They have an identified coordinator at Fitchburg State University. They work with our high school staff to identify students with intellectual impairments that can have an independent level to attend college level classes for credit. So they really look at the student's interest and they look to support the student during that class so our students can go to Fitchburg State University and earn credit with the support of the university. So they are in their first developmental year this year, developing the grant, and next year we'll be implementing with 3 students is the identified amount of students that Fitchburg State has identified through the grant because they do support other surrounding community students as well. So this is really an exciting project.
Is this Falcon Friends?
No, this is the Macy grant. Falcon Friends it's kind of a homegrown because we started an 18 to 22 program, 6 years ago? I can't even remember. So we decided when students are in their 12th grade year, they, like Alicia said, a lot of our students with intellectual impairment we service till they're 22. And they saw all their friends graduating and leaving the high school. So we worked with Fitchburg State University to start a program on their campus. So they walk across with all their friends and they go off to a program at Fitchburg State University, which is housed there. We now have 2 classrooms there. They participate in a lot of the college activities, and Falcon Friends was built from that program. So they participate with our classroom teacher, who's fantastic, Meryl Higgins, works to connect college students to support our students. They go to varying activities across campus. They participate in the athletic center there. They go to the cafeteria. So there's a lot of connection with college level students and on campus. And that's what Falcon Friends really was built for.
So our continued goal, given that we are 25% students who are identified with special education, our continued goal is to improve our access to supports prior to preventative measures. As a district, we service students who have specific learning disabilities, as well as intellectual impairments. There's a list of many disabilities. But if we can really provide supports to our students prior to them needing to be identified for special education services, we're going to continue to work on those preventative measures. So some of that may be additional screening and access to response to intervention for our students. Again, co-teaching is another opportunity for students to receive the additional supports that may be available to all students in the moment. So, and then I just added our contact information, so if people had additional questions or follow-up concerns or anything that they'd like to share, feel free to contact us.
Questions for the Special Education Department? Dr. Knight.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Barosvi, for all that you're doing for the students in the Fitchburg Public Schools. I have a question. Maybe you are not the one with the answer. I've never heard before what's done in Fitchburg. But with the level of co-teaching, the different models there, and thank you so much for this display, what's happening to the students, the students that are the gifted students? How are they being dealt with, and what type of provisions are there for them, or where are they? When you identify these students, how are they being their needs being met?
So the gifted and talented?
The gifted and talented.
So
Thank you.
Massachusetts doesn't recognize gifted and talented students under special education. However, federally.
In the regular classes, I mean, because this is not just for, because the.
So part of, really a co-teaching classroom allows, there's additional staff there available to allow for extensions as well as additional supports through special education. So it really, you have the gamut. So it's really about the extensions, if that's what you're...
Yeah, I can comment a little bit about that too. In our K-8 programs, Dr. Knight, our teachers are highly trained that they provide differentiated instruction to all the students. So they provide enrichment activities in the classroom, not only for our special education students or our ESL students, but also our advanced students in the classroom. Okay. We do have the Honors Academy track that is at the high school. But in our elementary and our middle schools, the teachers really do a fantastic job meeting the needs of all their students in their classroom.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Thank you all very much. First, let me say thank you for either saying or including in print what the acronyms mean. So, I know I'm on the school committee, but I don't know every acronym exists, and I'm sure people watching this. So thank you I appreciate that. And thank you for what you do. Ms. Arsenault, I think not only are Roanne and Alicia lucky to have you, I think we as a district are lucky to have you be so involved and take the lead on the Special Ed Parents Advisory Council, CPAC. I think it's great that the parents, and correct me if I'm wrong, play such an active role in seeing that everything possible is being done to provide the best education to our students with special needs. And I think it's good to have parents who know what this is like 24/7, not just at school. And I thank you for your involvement, and I hope you never stop doing what you're doing. So thanks again for a very great presentation. Thank you.
I think Rosemary had her hand up next, and
Yes,
then
I
Ms.
did.
Jeffries.
Yes, I did. Did I hear correctly? Did you say 25% of all students have been recognized as having intellectual?
No, not intellectual. 25% of our student population are identified with special needs. So
that's what I meant, with 25% of the 5,000 something that attend our schools?
Yep.
So they may have reading disabilities, they may have a disability in math, they may have autism, they may have an emotional impairment, they may have hearing issues.
Wow, that's 1/4, 1 out of every 4. Just anecdotally, I have heard parents try to get an IEP for their child. And of course, the parent is a very ardent advocate for their children, and has found it difficult. So are you saying that the Massachusetts education program has sent down some kind of a new or a revised agenda for identifying the students, or?
So it's not a agenda for identifying. There's a very specific process of evaluation, and to receive special education services, you have to have a disability.
Yeah, but what is new about this?
So that's the IEP. It's called the Individual Education Program. And what it is if a student does qualify for special education services, there's a particular goals and parent concerns, where we'd like to see that student in 5 years, as well as the specific goals in, let's say, again, if it's reading, to use that as an example, there's a goal and clear objectives that we have to look at and progress monitor to make sure that that's
So it's a developed program, because you have had this type of education, and I assume the same goals. So is there something special? Yeah.
Yeah, if I could speak as a parent, because I think sometimes, like, when you are learning about it, it's like, it's a whole new world. So with the IEP, it's basically a way to document the different types of services and objectives for a specific student based on their individual needs. The new IEP is just a new form. It's basically a new way of documenting that and giving educators the ability to maybe expand in certain areas so that it's maybe more clear over time, a little bit more straightforward, and I think easier for parents to engage, because it's incredibly important for the parental engagement, and I think in the IEP process it can be really overwhelming for parents. So this should help that, is I think the goal, right? So yeah, it's just basically a new way of documenting what has already been happening.
So you being so active as a parent could be helpful to other parents who are experiencing this.
Absolutely.
Any difficulties with the request?
Exactly, yeah. So we'll be hopefully offering some training.
Very active.
Yeah, it'll be, I did want to mention, I'm also, sorry, I don't mean to take over. Part of what I'm doing as a CPAC is I'm connecting with all the different PTOs that are in the community. So, like, I've talked to the president. I'll just throw, Crocker out. He reached out to me. We have a big need. Parents come to me. I can't always answer their questions. So we're hoping that over time, to build those connections, sometimes just information sharing is a big part of learning this process. And I'm a Fitchburg alumni too. I went to Fitchburg High, graduated in 2009. So some of these parents I went to school with, if we've all, maintained in the community. So it's important. And I think it's going to take time for us to really become as robust as I think the need is there, obviously. So hopefully.
And I appreciate that. I think as a parent, you have a special power of connection with others, parents. This co-teaching model, are you simply showing us different models, or are all these models? That term co-teaching in the past meant one teacher teaches in the morning and another teacher shares that same class or whatever subjects in the afternoon. But you don't mean that when you use this, do you?
No, they're in the classroom together.
You're in the classroom together.
Yep, so those are just example of different models that can be used.
That could be used, and you're right. A lot of variation there, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of variation, and we're still working with our teachers to really try out some different models, because it's going to depend on the lesson that you're putting together, the student needs, and what might be the best model for that particular subject that day.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Jeffries?
Oh.
Yeah, I wanted to comment first on the Best Buddies. I have a friend whose son participated in that, and that program does as much for the regular ed student as it does for the special needs student. I just couldn't believe the things. It just lit up this mother, because she was so proud of her son, and to see the interactions. So I think it's wonderful. And, once again, so impressed with Fitchburg and everything that's done to take away the stigma of students with special needs and finding ways to educate the whole child with peers. I think it's so important. And once again, we've got that collaboration with Fitchburg State, which I think is such a bonus for us. So thank you.
Really is.
Thank you all.
And Dr. Knight?
Yes, thank you so much. So I just finished reading a book, Critical Issues in Education, by Nelson Polonsky and McCarty. And they were talking about the history of students of color, particularly African American boys, being assigned or being given IEPs, and then when it's time for the IEP meetings, they did not have advocates. We certainly thank you, I forgot your name, that you're there to be an advocate for the Hispanic students, for example. But what are we doing so that we don't continue to see, and I hope it's not happening now, I'm talking about what I read in the book, that black boys, African American boys, don't fall through the crack or don't have someone to advocate for them so that they can get the proper accommodations and modifications to the IP so that they can be successful. Because I remember 100 years ago when I was at Fitchburg High School, they would be placed into classrooms where, whoever the teachers were, I don't remember the names, just gave them M&Ms to play with and whatever the case was, and they were not being successful 100 years ago.
Yep. So there's actually a couple of things. One is there was a higher number of students who were either African American or Hispanic who were being identified with intellectual impairments and placed in smaller classrooms, completely taken away from the general education. Not specifically saying that about Fitchburg in general. So the state put in place additional requirements for evaluations so that you can dive deeper and really make sure that whatever decisions you're making for an individual is based on data. That coupled with the fact that Massachusetts is involved in the mass tiered systems of support. So it's really about what supports, again, the preventative measures, but also what supports does a student need. We don't want a student to have to be labeled to get some supports that they may need, but really gone are the days of just taking students completely out of that environment without really clear data of what that student's needs might be.
Oh, and this is not directed specifically to you, but maybe, Superintendent Thompson, with all due respect. I know that we don't have African American administrators at the school, I don't know, participating in these IP meetings. Are we getting enough advocates for all the African American students that have IP so that they can get the proper accommodation and modification so that they can be successful also?
Yeah, so we do actually, our assistant principals and our principals don't sit in on IEP meetings. We have a student program support administrator that is called an SPSA. It's like the assistant principal of special education. They chair the IEP meetings. And in addition to that, we also have something called the educational team leader, the ETL. They also chair meetings, so they both share that role depending on the type of meeting. So we have diversity in those candidates that are running those meetings. In addition, it's a whole team process. So not only is it the SPSA or ETL, we have parents, we have teachers, we have actually the students, the teachers who are working with students around the table that are also diverse. If a parent does need supports, we do tell them that, these are their rights. They get the
Parents' rights
parents'
and procedural safeguards.
Parents' rights and procedural safeguards, thank you, before every meeting to go over those, to make sure they understand what their rights are. And at any time, a parent can bring an advocate to a meeting. It's their right.
Mm-hmm, that's correct.
And then we also have Camilla and the CPAC, where they can also reach out to them and get supports that they need from them.
But also we do know that sometimes our minority students are under the category of under the poverty level. So sometimes the parents, they have to work, they're not able to come to, all the meetings or, So what can we do? I hope we can do something so that whenever a student, we do have representation for Hispanic student, whenever an African American student has an IEP, that somebody that looks like them be a part of the meeting to help advocate for these students, because I don't know if everybody else has that on the top of their priority list, just so that the students can get the proper accommodations so that they can be successful also?
So just a few things. We really do a great job now, and I guess this was a positive of COVID. We are able to actually get more parent involvement in IEP meetings now, Dr. Knight, because of the opportunity to have them virtual. So because of that opportunity, we're able to have more parents engaged in the meetings. I think we're up pretty high now. We used to have parents that had to take off work and drive here to do the meetings, and that wasn't really convenient for them. But now they're able to attend virtually, so they can actually do that in their office, at their desk, or run out to their car and do that. So we have a lot better of attendance right now when it comes to meeting, their needs. So those virtual meetings work well. In addition to that, we have to, by law, provide, whether it's a Hispanic student, an African-American student, whatever their the language is, we have to provide translators. So we make sure that anytime there is a IEP meeting, we have a translator available. In addition to that, we also have to send home documents in their language to meet their needs. Did I miss anything else, Alicia?
I don't think so.
No.
Something too that exists is that there's a lot of organizations that offer advocacy services. So it's possible that like the Federation for Children with Special Needs is probably honed into these situations where there's not equitable opportunity for children of different backgrounds, and African American, I think some Asian cultures also have areas of struggle there. So they may have people that they can point you to. So sometimes there are resources that exist. It's just getting people like linked up with those resources, if that makes sense.
That is beautiful.
Is that okay for me to have said?
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So is it possible for the parents to know about these things, the parents of the African-American students to know that these organizations are there so that they can also get the support? That would be nice.
Yeah. We try to get our information out there. I think maybe that's something that we can make a topic of a meeting and try to pull some resources together, maybe create a sheet or something that we can give to parents. That's something that I'd be willing to maybe work out with you and see if we can create something that can be given to parents and see if that can. I'm sure that there's a need. We just don't always know what the needs are until the parents come. But I'm sure that, that's something that we can work on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think lastly, the other aspect is the evaluation team leaders. The addition of that position over the last 2 years has allowed more homeschool communication. So it really, sometimes it's about getting somebody to feel more comfortable to share what their concerns are, because most times it's really, I'm afraid if I say something, like how it's gonna come out. So that ETL position, that evaluation team leader, has allowed for more parent, home, and school communication.
One last question. If you, the figure you gave is 25% of the student body needs. Are you working with 25% of the student
They're all students who are identified and who we service.
You have those identifications?
Yes.
Lindsay?
If I may, as a parent of a student who actually is a special needs student, the Fitchburg Public Schools they've done a phenomenal job. They were the ones who identified that we needed to go through the process in order to see if an IEP was necessary, and once we went through that, it wasn't difficult to obtain at all, and they've been very good about maintaining it. And I will agree, it can be very overwhelming from the side of a parent to understand everything and try to figure out the best way to go through the process. But they've been phenomenal. So thank you.
Wonderful to hear.
Mr. Stevens?
One of the best kept secrets is the Fitchburg Public Schools. I don't think even a lot of our people in our community know what a great job we do in the Fitchburg Public Schools. Just even to identify that 25% of the kids with special needs, and that's not taking into account all the number of students who go to our collaboratives and other schools, which we do a great job of. Which I spent the afternoon with Jen Storm this afternoon up at CAPS. So we do a great job. when I tell people, don't look where our kids graduate from Fitchburg High, where they go, look where they get accepted to. Our kids, when they graduate, they get accepted to some great schools. We don't always have the financial resources to get them there, but our staff and the school system do a great job. And again, right in front of you do a great job, and what you've presented is excellent.
Well, and I will say that, not again to toot Fitchburg's horn, but at our last CPAC meeting, Sarah Cameron and Tiffany Wells, who are also members of the CPAC, shared that they work with many different districts because of the profession that they're in, and that Fitchburg is very responsive, much more responsive than other districts that they work with. So that was really great news to hear.
You know, you have a community like Fitchburg. We don't have a lot of money. The mayor can tell you that.
No,
we don't have a lot of money. But we do a great job in getting grants and providing for our students. We've had to be, because we don't have the money, we've had to be innovative, and we've had to work hard and to provide for our students. So.
I'm a grateful parent, so that's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
I have one question. For the breakdown by age or grade of our 25% students with identified special needs, are we identifying any trends, pre-KK, 1 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12? Are there any, of our grade levels that have a higher need that we need to plan for in the future?
I think this past year, since COVID, our younger students have come in much more dysregulated due to various things such as lack of exposure. I know Rowan works with South Street School, so you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so since COVID, normally on a typical school year, we were seeing about 180 referrals throughout the city. They come from early intervention, which is housed in Leominster, and they service students from birth until 2.9, or Head Start here in the city through Mock. We saw about 180 referrals. The past 2 years, we've been getting about 220 to 30 referrals through that younger age. So we're seeing an increase, and I couldn't tell you if it's from COVID or if it's just people moving into the city who are younger and having younger children, but we're seeing a huge increase at the preschool level for students being referred and then being found eligible for services for an IEP.
I would also say, coupled with DCF, Department of Children and Families, they're just a younger population of students who have experienced significant instability in their life and trauma. And then we've also seen a rise in students who are moving in who are already in out-of-district placements as well. So we're not seeing, the trends that we're seeing are more at the younger age level right now.
Yep. And in the response to that, we've used our SOA funds to add a lot more additional supports at the elementary and the early childhood level. Like we talked about last time when we talked about SOA, last meeting, we talked about the additional clinical interventionists, the behaviorists, the special education teachers. We've added all those staff in response to what we're seeing coming into the district. So we're meeting the students' needs. So.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. All right, moving on. The next item on the agenda, I think, is the calendar, correct? So this is the first reading of the district school calendar for the 24-25 school year. So this evening I'll go through what the draft calendar says and answer any questions you may have about the calendar. First, I want to start off, you're probably noticing that we are starting after the Labor Day weekend. And as said before, this is because of all the building projects we have going on. We have several HVAC upgrades happening throughout our schools this summer, in addition to the Crocker project. So they need us to push back the start of school as much as possible. So that's why we are starting after Labor Day this year like we did this past year. So that being said, to go through the dates that are on the calendar, August 20th and 21st will be 2 days for the new teacher orientation. Then we will start our teacher and paraprofessional development on August 27th, 28th, and 29th. Teachers will break for the long weekend, or staff will break for the long weekend. And then there will be no school again because of Labor Day on September 2nd. And then September 3rd is another professional development day. The reason why we are not starting on September 3rd is because the city contacted me a few months back, and they will be looking at using additional buildings for elections in the city. And there's 2 election dates this year on the calendar, September 3rd and November 5th. So they need the use of our buildings. So that's why those are professional development days this year. So that's why we are not starting on the 3rd. We are starting on the 4th. So the first day of classes will be Tuesday, September 4th for grades 1 to 12. And then that following Monday, September 9th, classes will begin for pre-K and K. October 9th is an early release day for professional development. October 14th is Indigenous Peoples Day. There'll be no school. Like I said, November 5th is a teacher, paraprofessional, and paraprofessional development day, so there's no school on that day, and also election day is happening. November 11th is Veterans Day, no school. November 27th is an early release for the Thanksgiving recess, which there will be no school on November 28th and 29th. Then we will have our December break from December 23rd to January 1st. January 2nd, we'll return from December vacation. We'll have no school on January 20th for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. On January 29th, there will be a staff professional development early release day. On February 6th, we'll have, and I'm sorry, I forgot something. Did I say December 5th was parent?
Nope.
I didn't. I skipped that. December 5th is an early release for parent-teacher conferences. My apologies. I'm reading too fast here. And then we have vacation break for December. January 2nd, we reopen. January 20th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. January 29th, staff PD. January 6th, we have the second. February 6th, we have the additional parent-teacher conferences. That's an early release day. February 17th to the 21st is no school. That's winter vacation. March 21st is a professional development day. There's no school. Then we have April vacation from the 21st to the 25th. May 26th, there's no school for Memorial Day. Our graduations for next school year will be on January 5th for Goodrich and January 6th for Fitchburg High. There'll be no school on January 19th.
June, right?
I'm sorry, June 19th. I'm looking at the dates and making sure I'm crossing the dates. June 19th, there's no school for Juneteenth. And then there will be an early release day, which is the last day of school on June 20th. It is later this year. And then that following week will be make up for weather cancellations from June 23rd to the 27th. A few things just to note. As you know, we are negotiating with our unions right now. There may be some changes to this calendar as we continue with negotiations, which will probably, we're looking at adding 2 additional early release days, maybe in April or May. But that has not been agreed upon yet. Okay? Questions about next year's calendar?
Do you have a date, sir, on the proms?
For this school year?
Yes.
May 11th, correct? May 11th is the prom for this school year.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Any questions on the calendar?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
I noticed the 2 early release for the conferences. Are they always that close together?
The teachers, I developed the calendar with the teachers' support, and the teachers asked us to make the early release day for conferences not in March, but in February.
Okay. Okay.
They felt it gave them more time to talk to parents before the marking term or quarter was up. All right, any other questions? All right, and I think that is a vote tonight for the first reading. I will be back on April 22nd for the second reading and for approval of the calendar. All right? All right. Last presentation this evening. So this evening, Mr. Roach and I have prepared a budget presentation for you. Some of the slides in front of you were very similar to the slides that we showed last budget presentation, but we have a little bit more information that we would like to share with you this evening, okay? So I'm going to begin, and then I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Roach, and then we'll open it up for any questions, okay? And in front of you, you do have this PowerPoint, so you can actually see if you can't see on the screen in front of you. So, a few things that we've been talking about. As you all know, the ESSER funds, those were the pandemic relief funds, those are ending at the end of this school year, okay? So, as you know, we've spent a lot of these funds on curriculum, enrichment activities, all the field trips that we've been on the last 3 years, millions on capital improvements throughout the district. Those are still going on and will continue going on. And other items that we've discussed previously in our budget meetings. In addition to this, this will be year 4 of our Student Opportunity Act. And as you all know, those Student Opportunity Act funds provide additional funding to schools with students that are the neediest throughout the Commonwealth. Fitchburg is one of those districts. Unfortunately, because of lower inflation rates, decrease in enrollment, and increase in other significant issues throughout the last few years, these funds are not as high as they have been in previous years. So I will talk a little bit about that in some slides coming up, but we did see a decrease in the funding that we have received compared to last year and the year before. In addition to that, this school year, we must invest, as I talked about last meeting, $2.9 million in our SOA, which again focuses on our EL, our SPED, our low income, and our Hispanic students. That's our number for $2.9 million is our SOA number. Our staffing right now is strong. However, we have to evaluate that to look at our current trends and our needs, and we'll talk a little bit about that as in some upcoming slides on some changes we may have to make. As you all know, we've been talking about this. All our units, our 7 units that we have in our unions in our city, or in our school system, are up for negotiations this year. Our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our custodians, our clerical nurses, and our assistant principals or directors, which we call Unit B. All 7 contracts are up. So right now we are negotiating all of these 7 contracts right now. So there's some questions around that, which we'll talk a little bit about, and we'll show you where we are budget-wise. And then, like I said before, we've been spending a lot of these funds from our ESSER funds to enhance our buildings, and those will continue moving into the summer, okay? So that's kind of a quick dipstick on where we are right now as we plan for our budget. So that being said, just a quick reminder, what makes up Fitchburg Public School budget? So there's 2 large factors. We have something called minimum city contributions, or the city. The city this year has to pay us $23,118,016. That's the city's portion of the operation fees that they have to pay to Fitchburg Public Schools this year. So the city has to pay that. State aid, what we get from Chapter 70, which is our state aid, which makes up the majority of our budget. The state gave us $77,891,114, okay? Which makes up our entire net school spending, or our budget, for this school year, which is $101,991,000. $9,130,000. So that's that number that I have to work with as we start planning for next year, that 101 number, okay? So right now, we know what our number is, 101,000. We don't know what those indirect costs will be right now that the city and us have to worry about for next year. There's still some questions about that, which we'll talk a little bit about, the unknowns in a next slide. But right now, we still have questions regarding insurance, how much that's going to be, how much our school choice out is going to be, how much our charter school assessments are going to be. So we have some ideas, but we don't have exact numbers. Until we know that, we really don't know at this time how much we have in surplus to run the school district. So we'll give you some estimates and some scenarios coming up, and Mr. Roach will explain some of the calculations that he's done. But that's where we are right now, and that's what makes up our net school spending or the budget. Okay? So next slide. This shows you a little bit about our local contribution in addition to our Chapter 70. I just talked about how we have Chapter 70, which is from the state, and our local contribution, which is from the city. The big piece I want you to see is in 2022, you can see how much we received for additional Chapter 70 funds. That was $3.54 million. Then in 23, we received additional $7 million. In 24, this past year, we received $6.46 million. This next year, because of inflation and all those other factors I just talked about, this is what we're receiving, $3.16 million. Look at the difference between the last few years.
Shouldn't we be receiving more due to inflation?
It's inflation is low. The factor's low. The number's low. It's changed. So because of inflation now, we don't get as much money as we used to. And that's showing you up here, okay? So we're dealing with less funds. When Mr. Roach and I were looking at this earlier this year, before we got this number, we thought we were going to get the same number between 6 and 7 million like we have before. As you can see, that didn't happen. So we have to plan for that, and we'll talk about that coming up, okay? And then because of this, the city has to continue to increase too. Because the Chapter 70 is increased, it then tells the city how much they have to pay us. And that's that bottom line. So as you can see, the city has gone up between 1 and 1.5 million the last few years. And again, the city revenues aren't where they need to be either.
No.
So we are looking at some budget issues moving into this next year.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that, okay? And this just is a quick example in front of you of the Student Opportunity Act because of the increased funds between Chapter 70 and the state. In the state, in addition to the city, this is the total that we've received the last 4 years. So as you can see, 2022, 3.9. And this is the Chapter 70 plus net school spending combined. Those are the increases we received in the last 4 years, 3.9 million, 7.8 million, 7.8 million, and now this year, 4.3. Okay? Again, a lot different than what we expected the last 2 years. Inflation has a lot to do with this. And I talked about this last time. 2.9 million of this 4.3 million here, that has to go to the Student Opportunity Act. And thankfully, we got that plan written last week, and we submitted it last Thursday. And we are waiting just to get feedback from the state, but our plan has been submitted. And we look forward to getting feedback from the state. And again, remember, this is addressing our priority needs, those 3 evidence-based strategies that we talked about, and focusing on our students with the greatest needs, special education, ESL, Hispanic, Latino, and low income, all right? So I'm now going to hand it over to Mr. Roach, and he's going to talk a little bit about how Chapter 70 works.
So as Superintendent Thompson noted, Chapter 70 is the state contribution to the operating budget for a public school district like ourselves. For us and everybody, it really is determined by the number of students that you have, your enrollment, the demographics of that student population, and then two other factors. Wage adjustment factor. So, for example, a community in Eastern Mass where prices are really high for property values, et cetera, might get an additional amount, whereas the vast majority of communities in Worcester County are just leveled at a 1.0 on their wage adjustment factor, or a 1.0, so we don't get anything additional. And then the final amount is the final factor is the inflation rate. So when Superintendent Thompson showed you the chart that showed 7.8 million, plus million increases, the inflation rate that was used to calculate the foundation budget was 4.5%. For the fiscal year 25 budget, that rate dropped to 1.35%. So it significantly lowered the amount. When you look at a chart like this shows you kind of the way that the communities in the state are assessed, their either municipal contribution amount, that's the lighter gray color, and the state Chapter 70 amount, which is the dark blue color. So it kind of gives you a cross-section of, towns across Massachusetts, starting with Westwood, which would, as a town, contribute the vast majority of the operating budget to the school. They're dark blue. They'd receive a much smaller amount. The minimum amount is 17.5%. So if everybody was $100 million, then Westwood would probably have to contribute as a town $82.5 million, and the remainder from the state would be 17.5. You can kind of work your way through Stoneham, Plymouth, Georgetown, et cetera, from sort of like higher affluent communities like Westwood, Stoneham, Plymouth, to Rockland, Greenfield, and then you see Fitchburg and Lawrence. So as you saw, if we go to the next slide, this is hard to see. Fortunately, it's in your packet. That is literally the foundation budget chart. That's what we get when the state releases it. You get an Excel. You can pick every community in there, regional district, whatever, charter schools, vocational schools, and it breaks down your enrollment. So 5,623 students for the Fitchburg Public Schools, and how is that calculated to get to $101,009,130, a $17,964 per pupil expenditure. The biggest factors are the number of low-income students that you enroll, the number of ESL students that you enroll, the number, of out-of-district special ed population. Because we have higher percentages than some of those communities that you saw on the previous chart, we're in group 11, so we get higher rates in those columns. Low-income English language learners, so when we multiply our 4,100, that's the number of students we have enrolled, the rates are higher than, say, Westwood or Stoneham or Plymouth or Georgetown or some of those other communities that you saw listed there. Every other column, so all those grade level ones like elementary, junior, mid, I can't quite see it myself, high school, are calculated by 1.35%. That was the increase. Thus, the significant decline in the amount of money that we received from Chapter 70. Dr. Knight, yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Roach, you said that we are down to 4,100 students? Right?
4,100 of our 5,623 are categorized as low income.
Okay.
Yep. No, that's a great question. We can move forward to the next slide there. This shows a little bit of a differential between the per pupil amount, the foundation and budget amount. Again, that's the city's contribution, the state's contribution, the increases you see, and you can see really a significant decline from FY24 and FY25. And I said it at a previous meeting. I know I said it at Resource Subcommittee last week. Across the state, communities were like, what's going on?
Everybody.
And that's why you're seeing in the news, about communities who are really struggling to be able to meet their net school spending and, maintain some of the great programs or staffing ratios that they've had. We had a couple of factors. We did see a decrease of 38 students in the foundation enrollment. We saw a decrease of 78 students categorized as low income. That happened in every community across the state. There's a decline in low income. That's actually a good thing. For our budget, it isn't necessarily. And then we did see an increase in the October 1st, database, the student information management system upload that certifies our enrollment. We did see an increase in English language learners, and we've kind of seen that continue throughout the school year as well. I think we can go to the next slide. So this one really demonstrates kind of where we are at the moment.
Yeah. So the next slide is kind of, I know you're looking at me like, oh boy, what are you going to say, Mr. Thompson, right? The next slide is giving you some scenarios here. So again, we talked about the unknown still. So what we want to do tonight is we want to walk you through kind of what we know about our costs and our factors, which is on the left. You can see that. In the middle, we're talking about what numbers we know right now. We're going to talk a little bit about what the rollover will be for our units and their increase. But then you're going to see some columns that say 1%, 2%, and 3%. Those are just a scenario on what we possibly will be settling for increases for our unions during negotiations, because we don't know yet. Okay? Could be lower, could be higher than these, but we just gave a couple scenarios. So again, we're going to give you some scenarios on what that will look like, and then we have some notes for you. So Mr. Roach is going to walk through these scenarios with you, and then we'll answer any questions you may have. All right? All right, Mr. Roach.
So this essentially just breaks out how do we get to the $101,009,130, which is our required amount that has to be spent. What goes into that? So the biggest, like in any school system, school districts are people businesses. They're not widget businesses. It's about people. So our biggest costs really are personnel. And so what you have in the top 5 columns really are our personnel costs. It's broken out by the major bargaining units that we have, which would be Unit A, that's teachers and other associated professionals. We have 560 staff members there. And what that shows is just what is the cost to just roll over the amount from this year to next year without any increase. And I'm not advocating for that. That's just the total.
That's the base.
That's just the base. And that includes step increases, because there's people that might be on step 3 that are going to go into step 4, because we have 9 steps overall total on our contract for the Unit A. It goes 1%, 2%, 3%. You could just keep going to 100% if you wanted to, but that just gives you a snapshot of what that looks like and what the increase would be. The next column down or row is paraprofessionals. We have 148 members in 4 different job classes. So there are program paras, there are non-program paras, there are security paras, there are behavior tech paras. So again, just roll over with steps cost, 1% increase, 2% increase, 3% increase, current average salary. Clerical is another bargaining unit group that we're working with. There are 36 members. They actually have 5 different job classes currently. We're working on that a little bit. Like, for example, there's a 190-day clerical membership. There's only a couple of those 4 total. So, again, that's a rollover with the steps, 1%, 2%, 3%, current average salary. That does not include the 190 or the tech. They're almost like a paraprofessional, but they're in the clerical unit. So they support just implementation of technology at various school sites. And we just have a small amount of those folks. And then custodial bargaining unit, which we have 34 members, a wide variety of jobs. The largest group there is what we refer to as our building custodian. Again, rollover with steps, 1%, 2%, 3%, current average salary. And then we get into another personnel group, which is nurses, central office or non-union staff. So that could be administrators, it might be support, it might be some clerical. and then it's all of our Unit B administrative staff as well. So those are assistant principals, they're student program support administrators, like you heard Ms. Borosby, Ms. DeManch talking about. Could be some of the directors, so director of SEL, director of literacy, math, et cetera. So currently that group is 75 people. The personnel cost there is $7,691,000. Now we get into the non-personnel costs. So special ed, we know, you saw the presentation, it's a significant budget driver for any school system. It's also very hard to predict because you can have student needs arise, and those could be move-ins, those could be identified during the school year. They might require really specialized programming depending upon the need of the student, and that cost can vary quite a bit from year to year. Currently, we're carrying over $7.3 million for that budget site. School building maintenance, we know we have 8 buildings. A number of them are aging buildings. We have a lot of capital improvement projects this summer, but we also have ongoing maintenance that we cannot defer. We have to address. And so, the non-personnel cost for school building maintenance is $3.65 million. Yeah, Mr. Walsh.
Mr. Roach, under school building maintenance, does that number reflect any new costs, one-time or ongoing costs associated with the new turf field at Crocker Field?
It does not.
Nope. It does not.
No. So the turf project will have, I shouldn't say not completely, but if so, very minimally. Okay. The turf project will have its own line items, 2. One to pay for the project and then one for ongoing maintenance.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Non-personnel rollover. So that would be including big ticket items like we do have to phase in and phase out older Chromebooks with new Chromebooks. Our McKay lease, which is about $1 million a year. Professional development, athletics, instructional supplies, field trips that we are adding into the general fund now because, ESSER is gone, the federal grant. Substitute teacher expenses, that's about a $900,000 budget line right now. Curriculum costs also have to be absorbed into our general fund. We have been using ESSER 1, 2, and 3 and have done a great deal to supplement and enhance our curriculum across the content areas, but we now need to bring that into our general fund because the ESSER is gone. We do have a great benefit for many of our staff with longevity incentives. That's currently $555,000. And then a really significant driver is indirect costs. So they don't count towards the actual process of education, but you have to pay for them. The biggest one there is health insurance for both active and retired employees. We're looking at, this is an estimate. The city is working on this. The auditor, the teams there are working on getting us a final number. If we just go with historical increases, we've heard it could be a 22% increase in the health insurance from this year to next. The previous year had been a $2.1 million increase in those indirect costs. So that's what we've place-held there as a cost. Hopefully that's lower, but we have to be careful as well. And then transportation is another cost that is really a city cost, but it's a significant one at $8.75 million.
And that one's pretty good.
Those are three. That's as high as it will be.
Yeah, that we have a pretty good understanding of that right now. The transportation, we just got our contracts. We signed those for the next few years, so we're good. That is a number that we can.
Yeah, we're solid there. Number. I mean, I think we were able to go out to bid on all 3. So in-district special ed, out-of-district special ed, and then regular day school. That's the yellow buses. The costs are significant, but we're at least established with those costs now for the next 5 years.
So the large rise in transportation costs this year to make up for the last budget, that was due to a contract that wasn't solidified?
Yeah, that was because we had one special ed, specifically transportation, had to go out to bid for just a one-year contract.
Now
And it
we
came in
have
at
a,
almost $5 million.
now we have a 5-year
Five-year
contract.
contract, correct? We have a 5-year contract.
1 year
So we'll have more
increments.
stability in our
Yep.
transportation.
But the factor is if we get any move-ins. If any kids move into our district that require us to pay for their transportation out of district or something like that, those are the unknown factors.
And those could range from 100 to 400,000.
Yeah, the out-of-district school can range from that, for sure. The collaboratives, obviously are a great partnership for us and much lower cost, but, they have space limitations and sometimes can't service the needs of the students. So, yeah, I mean, these are big factors that every district, recent article in the Boston Globe highlighted, Massachusetts public schools are really struggling this year. What are some common factors? Transportation.
How does this
Special ed
transportation
costs.
number compare to the current number?
It's a little bit higher, but it's about the same. Yeah, we won't see a big increase.
We were pretty surprised with the 3 contracts that we received.
Yeah.
They were pretty good, pretty similar to what we have had. They've gone up a little bit, but nothing drastic. We thought they were going to go up even more, but we were pretty happy with what we got for bids. Yep. So let us just finish up, and then we'll open it up to questions. So as you can see, and Mr. Roach, please chime in, here are our estimated totals for our unknowns. Like I said, I don't know how much negotiations will be for our 7 units. I don't know what those increases will be. And I don't know really what those indirect costs will be. So we gave you those scenarios. What the rollover is the first 100 million number, and then it goes up to 101.4, 101.9, and 102.4. Those are the unknowns. We don't know yet what will happen for next year. And as you can see, we have in green and red, with those indirect costs in addition to the increases, we will have some type of
Cuts.
some type of difference that we're going to need to make up.
And to
Anywhere
add
between,
just-
about 500,000 all the way up to 1.49. Again, these are just estimates. It could be higher, it could be lower. But we will have to balance our budget based on what we have.
Yeah, and there's not enough space on the chart, but if you wanted to extrapolate out 4%, 5%, just keep adding 500,000. It's pretty straightforward. You go to 4%, add 500,000 to the 102,488, maybe a little bit higher. You add 5%, add 500,000 to what you just added 500,000 to that one. So you could keep doing that out to the right. Again, there's only so much space on the chart, and
So
you want to make the font 4.
So, like I said, we know what some of these costs are. We have estimates on what we think it could be. But again, it looks like we will have to make some difficult decisions moving forward, and we may have to make some cuts to balance this budget, whether it's cuts at administration, custodian, clerical, teachers, whatever. We may have to look at that as we move into next school year. And again, my goal will be to look at making sure we provide the best quality education for our students. So whatever cuts we have to make will be in the needs of our kids. That's my guarantee that I will give to you. So as we continue to move through this, we'll be transparent and present the information as soon as we get it to the school committee. And then if you look, Jeremy put together the timeline for where we're at now. So again, we're here on April 1st, 6 p.m., giving you the budget update on where we what we know as of today. There'll be another resource meeting next week, Jeremy,
Yeah,
correct?
next Tuesday. That's just a resource meeting, so not building needs.
Yep.
We'll come back April 22nd for another school committee meeting. We'll have a sample of the budget book, and I think we'll have a better sense of the indirect costs by then. And you know, we'll be in a position of, we still want to stay with the May 6th school committee meeting to vote to adopt an FY25 budget. Might we still have some unknowns at that point? Yeah, it's possible. If not likely, it's possible. So, but we're going to do our best to try to have it as tightened up as we possibly can by then.
Questions for us?
Yes,
Dr. Knight.
a couple. I don't know how to see the funds that we receive from the students from outside of our district attending Goodrich Academy, for example. Where is that in here, you know? Because I understand that.
So that's a really small amount.
That's an indirect cost that offsets the indirect cost. So one of the big indirect costs too would be school choice out. So that's students who live in Fitchburg but attend another public school. So we receive their foundation budget per pupil amount, but then we pay the school community that they attend $5,800. On the flip side, we do receive funds from students who attend our schools that live in another community like Leominster or Lunenburg or Ashburnham or wherever. It's about a 3-to-1 differential, so 2.5 to 1. So if we are paying out $2.5 million, we get about $1 million back on that.
So, Mr. Roach, can you clarify to the Goodrich students? So we have probably, let's say, an average of 60 kids coming in for Goodrich. And what do we get average based on those kids? Probably about $5,000?
Yeah, so let me just see if I have the exact total here on school choice. So Goodrich has 67.
67 kids.
67 students are school choice in. So we would receive, depending upon when they enroll, so if they enroll halfway through a year, we wouldn't receive the total amount, but we could receive up to $5,800 for each one of those students.
So that, if you do the math,
So 400,
so what,
some odd
67 times maybe 58, and that decreases as
It could, depending upon when they enroll. Yeah.
So we probably, if I do the math right, we have 67 kids times 5,800, was about what, 380,000?
Yeah, roughly.
Roughly.
So if our per pupil cost is 18,000, how does that work with school choice?
So with school choice, it works that if we have, so for a foundation enrollment total, you include the students who are school-aged, residents of Fitchburg, attending a public school. We collect the $17,964 for all of those students. If there are 361 of them who are school choice out, which is what it is, then we would then take the 17,900, but take 5,800 and pay all those other communities that amount.
So that
On the flip side, a Lunenburg student who attends Fitchburg, Lunenburg receives their per pupil amount, whatever it is, it'll be different because every community is a little different. Then they would pay us the $5,800 because they're enrolled in our schools as a school choice student.
So they still keep a percentage of those funds?
Yep. It's not all or nothing on school choice.
Okay, still need to get some better understanding of that. But anyways, the next thing I'm asking here, just for my clarification. So under the other personnel costs, right, we have $7,600,000 and something thousand. It says here on the right hand that 75 members, including all the administrators and the clerical, the nurses and so forth, right?
Yep.
But then when we look at the one below, the special education costs, we are spending almost the same amount of money, and it says here that we are servicing 24% of the population, and that is approximately 160 students in, out of district placement. Who is, with all due respect, is responsible for looking into this to try to not have so many of our students going to other districts, this is where a lot of the money is going.
Yeah. So
I mean, don't we have, you know, we have programs here, you know, special education program. What can we do? Or
Yeah, that's a great question, and
It
that's
is.
something Mr. Roach and I have been talking about, and as you can see, we have a lot of costs that go out of district. These are the kids that have those really severe special needs, that may have severe academic learning, you know, profiles, that they need some type of specialized instruction that we can't service them. It may be a student who's hard of hearing or someone who's blind. It may be a student with a severe behavioral disability, or someone with maybe a severe autism disability. We have, over the years, brought in a lot of these programs. We have our autism program throughout the district, in addition to our learning perspectives that services students with low intellectual disabilities, in addition to behavioral needs. But sometimes these students need additional programming that we can't provide to them in the district. Right now, we're looking at these programs, and once we have some more space, once the new Crocker opens, there may be a possibility for us to actually look at bringing some of those kids back into the district and creating more specialized programs for them. But right now, we don't have the space to do that. So that's an opportunity, and another opportunity is actually us to collaborate with some of our collaboratives, maybe Keystone or CAPS, to see if they can actually provide their programming in our district. So they would use our space, but they would actually run the program. They would hire the staff. They would oversee that program in our schools. So there's different types of opportunities that we have that we can look for in the future. But right now, we don't have the space to do that until we actually open up Crocker Elementary School.
I'm sorry. You're saying we don't have the space, which you know more than I do. You know, I don't know where these things are. I mean, could be. But, you know, for the amount of money, and this is just a thought, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, okay, with all due respect. But it seemed like with the amount of money here that is invested in this section, that we can certainly pay professionals to be able to service the students, and I don't know, maybe build a room in the back of some other room. You know, I'm just saying, just a thought. So maybe if somebody that know more about this area could think about that, because we really are spending a lot of money in that area. Which,
But that's not all out-of-district placements, correct, Mr.
No.
Mr. Roach?
No?
You want
No.
to talk a little bit about that?
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, there's a significant amount of funds that we use to support our students with special needs. As Superintendent Thompson said, we do have students who are in the district who have needs within substantially separate programs, and we're able to do that right in the schools. Whether it's learning perspectives or pathways or guided learning, we have a number of those programs. We have costs with special ed for staffing, of course, but when we look at the cost specifically for students who attend out of district, one of the biggest issues that we've seen is, and this is one of those, it's outside of the control of the district, is the rising costs of one of the private or public placed schools.
Right, because it costs about $63,000 to send a student that has autism to some special school. I mean, I don't know, maybe we can start thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at just what was released recently by the state contract, which is it's the Operation Services Division. They set the rates for a lot of these schools. These are day schools, $250,000 a year, 130,000, 88,000, 91, 96, 165, 119. Residential, 491, 420. So that's for one, placement. And again, you asked the question, who makes the decision around that? The team does.
And that doesn't include
Not in-
transportation, right?
That does not.
No, that comes out of the other.
That's out of that other.
And that's another big factor.
And another reason I'm just asking this question is because, Mr. Thompson said that, when the negotiation takes place, he might have to cut teachers, and if we cut teachers or educators, the students are going to suffer. So, I'm just trying to look at some place, somebody that is an expert in this area, look into that to try to get the funds so that we can.
Yeah, can I just answer her question, and then I'll turn it over to you? And that's the last case scenario, Dr. Knight. We don't go to move kids out of the district. It takes a lot for us. That's the last case resort when we are working with students. There's several meetings that go along throughout the child's career before we make that decision. There's IEP meetings. There's testing that happens. We have consultants to come in and look and see if we can improve our environments for that student. But unfortunately, sometimes there are needs that we're not able to meet. And especially, too, if a student moves in, we're also required to pay for that. And their IEP may have been developed in another school system. And we also have to look at that, too. So there's a lot of factors. Unfortunately, all districts always look at the special education costs, and they think of different ideas, like I shared with you, that we're trying to think of to bring this programming back. But I want to make sure you understand that this is the last resort. When we have to move a kid out, it really is based on that team, the parents on that team, the educators here, and we do what's best for the child. And it's really, that's the next step, and we don't do that lightly. So.
I was going to say, Dr. Knight, what Mr. Roach talked about, like these 119, 180, 150, that's why we've developed the collaboratives. The CAPS collaborative and the Keystone is about the same. We average about 60,000 per student. Right. That's why we have the collaboratives. You may have 6 students in the classroom with 1 teacher and 1 or 2 aides. We might have one student, all right? So we send that 1 student, we pay $60,000. We could have that 1 student in our 1 classroom with an aide, and we might be paying that teacher $75,000 or $80,000. But by working with the collaboratives, we can get, say Athol might have 1 student the same as we do. We get them into 1 room. That's why the collaboratives form. We get a much lower cost.
You see, I'm already thinking about saving you. You said 1 teacher for $70,000. What, maybe a new teacher, would cut that down under the $60,000. But anyway, no,
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of it.
Try to find a new special ed teacher. That's.
May I just add something to what you're saying? Because Mr. Stevens introduced me to this system for special needs care. I think you enjoy going to different schools and seeing what happens. You should invite you to come to the collaborative, and you will be in awe. They do an awesome job.
I think there's a meeting tomorrow, isn't there? Is there a meeting tomorrow, Dr. Knight?
Well, there's a budget meeting.
Tomorrow, I think, yeah.
And it's going up to 76,000, by the way, so the figure 60,000 is in the past.
We're doing a good job over there at CAPS. We're keeping it, our increase might be about 3.5%.
But and we're going up to 8.5%.
You're going to 8.5%? Yeah, no, we're keeping keep me on there, that CAPS board as chair. I keep that cost down.
What's she referring to?
Keystone.
Our 2 collaboratives are Keystone and CAPS. Those are the ones we work with the most. Did you have something you wanted to say, Jim?
Just briefly.
And then I think Lindsay after.
What you said, I know you do the very best to keep students in our district. And at the same time, if it's just something that can't be provided in our district, you're required to provide the best service for that student, wherever that may be. Mm-hmm. And as you said, a family could move into the district with a student who still needs to go someplace that could be out of state, and because we can't provide it here, you're required to provide the cost for that student to be there. And I think, as Mr. Stevens said, and I think at the beginning of the year, I think there were something like 25 positions that weren't filled, and most of them were special ed positions.
Yep.
And that's, I think, the other issue is that if the person was available, we would try to hire them, but they're just not people who have that skill, and the positions are difficult to fill.
And it's not just us, I didn't interrupt you, did I?
No. And
It's not just us struggling to find special education teachers, it's also the collaboratives. They're trying to find teachers also. Sorry.
You talk about cost for special ed. I remember Dr. Maureen Marshall, she was out in the Quabbin district, and she was on the CAPS board, and she was complaining that she had a parent move into her district, all right? The parent moved into the district. The student was in special need placement at $250,000 a year, all right? The student never was in the Quabbin district, never went to school in the Quabbin district. The parent moved into the Quabbin district, and that other school system immediately transferred that cost over to the Quabbin district.
That could happen to any of us.
Yeah.
Can Lindsay's been waiting. Sorry, go ahead, Lindsay, and then Glenda will have a chance. Sorry.
I just had a couple of questions for clarification, and this might be my lack of experience here. So the longevity line, so I just have hopefully a couple of very quick questions. Longevity line, I guess I don't know what that is.
Jeremy, what?
Yeah, it's a benefit that some members receive if they've been in the district for a certain amount of years. They might get $1,000 additional or $1,500 additional. It's a great incentive to promote, and maintain excellent staff, and it's very common. It's a common incentive, but we have to budget for it.
I wasn't even thinking of that. I was thinking of, in terms of students, what longevity would
Yeah,
be.
no.
That makes perfect sense. And then under the next line down for the indirect costs and chargebacks, the charter school assessment, can you give me just a brief kind of explanation what that is?
Sure. It's for students who attend a charter school, like Sizer or Parker or any of the ones that they might attend. The city is obligated to pay a certain amount. So whatever that number of students who are enrolled, I want to say it's in the 300s. The city pays the million plus. It's I think 3.9 or whatever it is.
3.19?
Yep.
Isn't it for pupil cost? For pupil cost, Jeremy, for charter schools?
Yeah. So it's actually sort of a weird equation where they do give you a charter school reimbursement, much like the school choice one. So you pay out and then you receive some back, and it's based on the first year is 100%, and then the next year 80%, then 60%, then 40%. So they get charged a little bit less with each year, so you do get a reimbursement back. But the biggest ones, again, we have one in the city, but there are a number of them that students attend, throughout the area. Again, Parker and Sizer are the two most common.
Okay, so it's kind of the charter school equivalent of the school choice out.
Yes.
It is exactly that. Okay. It's a little more, it's even more complex, like just the ratio of how they come to a cost, because they include a capital amount too, but that's you're pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Okay, last one. Let's say, I think I was looking at the transportation. You mentioned that the contract with the transportation was for 5 years?
Yes.
So is the idea, granted, I know there was some variables that were mentioned, but largely this is the amount that is expected to not increase for the next 5 years?
It will go up.
It will increase a little bit each year. They factor in costs around fuel and things like that.
Okay.
But for what we received for bids, what we expect under contract for in-district special ed is $1.947 million. For out-of-district special ed, $2.7 million. And then for the large yellow buses, 2.9 million. And that's for fiscal year 25.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that could go up if we have more children with...
The two, variables would be, do you need to add an additional bus to your yellow bus fleet? We have 30. We're hoping to receive 10 electric buses, which actually would help with cost ultimately. Not in year one, but year two. We have applied for that through First Student. That's the contract for that bus. Out of district special ed for sure, and then in district special ed as well. So the students who attend our schools but are transported by a van.
I think, Glenda, you also have a question. You've been patiently waiting.
Not a question, just a statement that I just want to share, that as, we're sharing this data and sharing about budgeting and talking about cost saving, I just want to publicly recognize, both what Superintendent Thompson shared, that our goal is doing what is best for students. And so I also want to publicly recognize for our union representation as well, that the goal is that we want to make sure that we're retaining quality staff so that we are working in service of the students. So I just want to be clear when we're talking about cuts and where those things can happen, that we are not thinking in terms of limiting access to our students, right? And so I just want to share that because I think that this, sometimes the conversations that we have can really create space that feels uncomfortable. And I think it's really important that we honor and state that whatever we do, we really need to recognize that we do have really great quality educators in our district. And the priority is making sure that we retain them, right? Yep. To make sure that we retain them in service of our students. So I just wanted to make sure that that was stated.
One last question, quick. And again, this is just a thought I'm throwing out there. I know we do pay, with all due respect, anyone listening, millions of dollars every year to use the McKay campus. I am just wondering if the money that we paid here every year, would that be enough money to maybe take care of the asbestos in Crocker and rebuild that there, and I don't know, people that do this and save some money there, that I'm just looking for ways to save money so that we can be taken care of.
Yeah, that's a great question. The cost to actually renovate Crocker, I think, will be extremely higher than what it's cost to build the new Crocker. So that was something that we actually explored when we were doing these building projects. Does it make sense to us to renovate buildings or build new? It's actually cheaper to build a new building than actually renovate a building because of all the codes and things you have to, put in for and follow. At this point, that is something that, I don't think the city could manage another financing of another project at this point in the city, like a large school project. I mean, that's
for
another 20
number of years.
Yeah. So it actually is cost effective for us right now because that $1 million actually pays for us to have that building, and all the maintenance and ongoing costs there are from the college has to do that in our lease agreement. So right now I know it looks like it's a lot, but actually I think it's a really important piece for us because it saves us a lot of funds, especially around maintenance for that building, because they pay for that. But that's a good idea. You're thinking outside the box. It's important to think of ideas to save money. It really
I
is.
have talked to the superintendent we have about 17 classrooms at South Street. Like, $20-25 million to renovate them?
Oh, the space, the north building?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what the cost would be to renovate that building.
They were
'cause I think there's
talking-
11 classrooms.
It was an estimate about
Yeah,
8 years
it
ago.
would be a lot.
It was 20-25 million. Yeah.
2016 this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And it's probably even gone up now because of
all the asbestos
all the costs associated with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the tree growing in
And the tree growing
former
in
gym.
the middle of the building too. And, yeah.
Yeah, I bet you can add 40%.
Oh yeah, it's outside.
I have a couple thoughts. First of all, just the atmosphere and it's difficult to create, but I feel that you keep saying that children will come first, and I feel like it's really true. Now, I know somebody that you can use those words and in fact have something else in mind, economics first or something like that, but I'm really proud of the work that we're all doing. I think we're, volunteering our time. And
We're pretty great.
Yes.
I agree.
This is a really nice atmosphere, and I love the fact that people have questions and come up. And then the second thing is a suggestion. I knew nothing about these collaboratives until Peter asked me if I wanted to join the board of Keystone, and I'll tell you, I'm awed by it. So in order to educate ourselves about it, perhaps they can come for presentations and show us what Gardner could come and give a presentation, and Keystone could. Yeah. I think our eyes would open.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I know someone on CAPS.
Do you know the chairman?
I might know him. Yep. Well, thank you. I know this isn't, the best news, but this is where we're at. It's reality. And like I said, we will do our best to keep programming here that's best for our students. So thank you. We'll come back next time with some more information, and we will move ahead to developing our budget for next year. Last piece for me is...
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Contrary to what some people think, I think you're doing an outstanding job.
Well, thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so two things this evening. I have one grant to get permission to submit. It's the STEM Equipment and Professional Development Grant, which is a competitive grant from Mass Life Science Center. It's for $80,000. This will support professional development for our teachers, purchase of equipment, materials, supplies, and technology needed to support new or expanded curriculum. Funding will enable schools to educate students in real-world scenarios that will prepare them for career opportunities in life sciences. PD funding will ensure that educators receive the technical training needed to effectively use newly acquired equipment and technology. The ongoing requirements for us is just to report out on the professional development that teachers took place in addition to our student outcomes. That's for $80,000. And then we need to accept one grant for the Financial Education Innovation Funding for Fitchburg High School for $6,900. That will continue to support the financial literacy program at Fitchburg High School. And there's no requirements for that. Okay, over to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Superintendent Thompson. Okay, we have action items before us. 24-373, skipped 24-374, as we've already voted on that out of order, through 24-376.
I'd like to make a motion to bundle action items 24-373, 24-375, and 24-376.
Second. Motion and second to bundle the three action items together. Any questions or comments on the bundle? Okay, all
Motion to accept the bundle?
all approved to bundle?
Aye.
Yes. Aye. Okay, any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we have the bundle before us.
Make a motion to approve the bundle.
Second. Motion and second to approve the bundle. Any questions or comments? Yes, Ms.
No, I was saying aye.
Oh, okay.
Aye.
Okay, no questions or comments, all approved?
Yay.
Aye.
All against? It's unanimously approved. Okay, fantastic. Now we have other business. Number 9, we have a open meeting law complaint that has submitted against us. If you would like to discuss this, Superintendent Thompson?
Yeah, so we have another open meeting law complaint, and this time it's against myself, in addition to the rolling out of the agendas. It is my understanding that we are able to make changes to the agenda up until the meeting starts, and I am being told by this public open meeting law complaint that I have to do it in 48 hours or less. So what we need to do is I need to correspond with our attorney to get the correct understanding on this law, because I'm being told it is 48 hours. I mean, it is, we're able to change the agenda right up until the meeting, as long as we post the changes. I can get the correct terminology from our attorney, and then I can respond to this open law complaint, if that's okay with the mayor. I know it says chair. That would be you. If you would like me to respond to this, I can do that with your support. But I just need permission to respond. That's what I'm being told.
Yes, so, we did have a discussion with the school council, and he did confirm that, that we can adjust the agenda, we can amend the agenda as long as it was something that was not anticipated by the chair, and just to post it, correctly. This is a common practice, and some people in the community do not appreciate of any adjustments to the agenda once it's posted at all. Correct. Even though it is within, as long as it is within the guidelines of the open meeting law, it is allowed. So I would support a motion to approve the chair to send the reply with Superintendent Thompson's assistance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the chair to send a reply to the open meeting law complaint from March 18th. Any questions or comments on the motion? All approve of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? It's unanimous approval. All right, we'll take care of that.
Motion for adjournment.
Okay, we have a motion for adjournment. Motion and second for adjournment. All approved?
All in favor? Aye.
All right, and that's unanimous, and we're adjourned.